Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode with your girl, Miss Audrey Codner-Gibson. How you doing, boo-boo? All right, my loves. Well, hopefully you have your pencils ready. Hopefully you have some paper ready because today we're going to talk about percents. And this is something that you can definitely use in today's society. So there's none of this, when am I ever going to use this in real life? Percentages, boo, you're going to use it in real life. Okay, so let's get ready and make sure you guys get set because we're about to go on percentages. All right, everyone, and welcome back again. My name is Audrey Codner-Gibson, the owner of ACG Math Tutoring and trying to be a math extraordinaire. All right, that's a bit much. Okay, been a math teacher for about 18 years in high school math. So, I just figured that we need to work on some foundational skills. So why not do it as videos? So as suggested, and I'm going to share my screen with you like I always do, because why would I want to keep you out of the pool? Come swim in the pool. Come with the math pool. Let's do it. All right. So today, as promised, we're going to work on percents or percentages, as most people will say. Like we deal with percentages every day, especially with sales and cost effective or anything. Everyone's always dealing with some type of percents. So what we're going to look at is the Common Core Standard of A for algebra, CED point 3. And we're going to review what we did last time. So we worked on proportions, looked at it as word problems, and I really think that based on the feedback, a lot of you guys got it. See, look at you doing stuff. All right, so if 12 oranges cost $4.80, what would be the cost of 3 oranges? So I wish 12 oranges nowadays cost $4.80, but we'll work it out. So if I have 12 oranges, with the cost of $4.80. Okay, make sure I put that decimal down. And then we're going to say it's going to equal, what's the 3? The 3 is going to go where? In the numerator or the denominator? Hopefully you're saying in the numerator. So that'll be my 3. Again, I don't know what's up with that. And then they're looking for the cost. So right here, we're going to do our cross multiplication. So you got your 12x. Is equal to 1440. And then in order for us to get x by itself or isolate that variable, I got to divide both sides by the 12. So that means x is going to equal 1.20, or in our case, $1.20 for 3 oranges. I wish. So let's go with my girl Grace. So Grace can travel 9 miles on her bike in 2 hours, okay? At this rate, how far can she travel in 5 hours? So let's set up our ratio. So we're looking at 9 miles over 2 hours, and we want to see if it's equivalent to what over what. So in this case, since we said the hours are going to be in the denominator, that means the hours is going to stay in the denominator. And then her mileage is going to go on the numerator, but since we don't know that, and that's what we're looking for, I'm going to use the variable x. So now, just like we did before, we're going to cross multiply. So I'm going to do 2 times x, and then 9 times 5. So 2 times x gives me 2x. 9 times 5 gives me 45. Now I want to do the inverse of multiplication, which is division. Once I cancel out my 2's, which gives me 1x or just x, and then I got 45 divided by 2, which gives me 22.5. So 22.5 what? Hopefully you're saying 22.5 miles. So Grace be moving, okay? So she's basically covering that mileage in like 5 hours, all right? So looking at our learning targets, okay, this is what you should be saying to yourself. I can find the percent of a number, okay? So we are going to deal with percentages. And yes, you're going to be able to find the percent of a number. So we look at our exit ticket from last time. We're going to go through guided notes and some examples of percents or percentages. We're going to do some practice, and then as normal, we're going to look at our exit ticket. So let's take a look. So what is a percent? So a percent means per 100 or hundredth with the TH, okay? So it's going to be something out of 100, okay? So percents can be represented as decimals and fractions. So we're going to be doing a couple of helpful hints. So when working with percents, you may work with the fraction and the decimal, so you can transform some of the things. You can transfer some of the percents to a decimal to help you do your calculations, or you can change it to a fraction to help you do the calculations, depending on the situation, okay? So there's 3 basic types of percent problems that you're going to see. So it's either the percent of a number, you're going to be finding the percent, or you're going to find the whole number or the whole when the part and the percent are known. So you're probably reading like, what are you talking about? Let me show you through examples, okay? So before we do anything, we got to kind of go back old school to changing those percentages to decimals and to fractions. So as I mentioned before, a percent is out of 100 per 100. So if I have number 1, 20%, that means I'm looking at 20 over 100 or 20 out of 100, okay? So I got 20 pennies out of 100 pennies. That's going to be 20% of my representation, okay? So now I can simplify this because both of my ones digits end in 0. So I can say that 0's gone and that 0's gone. So instead of looking at larger numbers, I can break it down to smaller numbers. So I have 2 over 10. So now I'm like, ooh, 2 over 10, I can reduce that. I think I can reduce that by 2. So that means I'll need to divide the numerator by 2 and divide the denominator by 2. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So 1/5 is equivalent to 20%. So that is it as a fraction. Now, as a decimal, if you want, you can actually do the division. So my dividend will be the 1. My divisor will be the 5. So it kind of does a little reflection what we did in the early sessions. So if I add a decimal and a 0, so instead of me just saying, okay, how many 5s can go into, what is going on? How many 5s can go into 1? That's not possible. But now I can say, all right, how many 5s can go into 10? And I'm going to say 2. So I got 0.2. All right. So 0.2 is the same as saying 0.20. If you remember, there was a rule. If I start with my percent sign, since it's out of 100, that means I can move it 2 places. So if I start, say, a decimal point right where the percent sign is, and if I move it 1, 2 to the left, I can change that percent to a decimal. So if I move it 2 places, to the left, will go from a percent to a decimal. Okay? So if I start where the percent sign is and I move it 2 places to the left, it will take me to my decimal. If I want to see it as a fraction, take your number and put it over 100 and then simplify. All right? So let's take a look at number 2. So you're probably saying, well, Ms. Codner-Gibson, like it's 9%, like there's no 2 places, it's just 1. Well, let's take a look. Again, even though it's a single digit, it's always going to be over 100. So remember, percent is per 100. So 9 100ths can't be reduced. That's as lowest form. But as a decimal, if I wanted to, I could do the long division. That means my divisor is going to be the 100. My dividend will be the 9. And how many hundreds can go into 9? None. So that means if I put my decimal and add a 0, how many hundreds can go into 90? Let me add one more 0. So in this case, I got my decimal up top. I got my 0. So how many hundreds can go into 900? Oh, 9. So 9% as a decimal is going to be 0.09. So it's almost like, think about, I got 9 cents out of 100 pennies. So it's going to be 0.09, not 0.9. No, 0.9, that's 90 cents. Okay, there's a difference between 90 cents and 9 cents. Okay, so in this case, if I try to do that moving over 2 places to the left, I could still do that. So if I had 9%, let me just take it over here. My decimal will be right where the percent sign is, and I will still move it over 1, 2. But right now, there wasn't a 2, so what can I put it in its place? Hopefully you're saying a 0. So that's how you get 9% to turn into 900ths, okay? And lastly, for 45%. So we know we can got 45 over 100. So I can't do that simple crossing out zeros because I got 45 and I got 100. But I definitely know that my ones units, the 5 and the 0, they're both divisible by 5. So that means I can divide my numerator by 5 and divide my denominator by 5. So 45 divided by 5 will give me 9, and 100 divided by 5 will give me 20. So do they have anything for 9 and 20 have in common other than 1? No. So that is your simplified fraction. So if I went with the denominator, or actually as a decimal, I will move it 2 places over. So as a decimal, 45% will be 0.45. Okay? All right, that was a lot, but keep that in mind as we progress forward. So now you can use your decimal or fractions to find the percent of numbers, but I want to keep this simple. So I know in the beginning of the school year, I usually give my students this form, operations of terminology. So basically, what words go with what operations? So these words for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, equals, and inequalities can play into any word problem whatsoever. So these are just generally the most popular ones, but there's definitely more, okay? So it says find 25% of 60. So here's this key word, of. What operation is of? So if I take a look, which one just has of by itself? That's right here with multiplication. So that means I need to change this percent. My suggestion, you can change it to a decimal or you can change it to a fraction, but we need to change it out of its percent form. So I can do this. I can go 1, 2, so now I got 0.25. Of means multiplication 60, or I can do parentheses. So when you do the multiplication, you're multiplying 25 hundredths times 60, which that will give me 15. If you want to change that percent to a fraction, let's think 25%. If I think of quarters, because 25 cents is 1 quarter. How many quarters give me $1? Hopefully you guys are saying 4. If not, I gotta show you another video, okay? So you got 4 quarters, but I'm only talking about 1 out of those 4 quarters. So 25% can also be written as 1/4. 1/4 of 60. So now we got a fraction being multiplied by a whole number, which we can either just put the whole number over 1, and then we can go 60 times 1, which gives me 60, divided by 4 times 1, which gives me 4, and then I can divide 60 and 4, give me my 15. Or I can do what's called cross simplify. 4 and 60, they have something in common. They have 4 in common. So if I cross that out, 4 divided by 4 will give me 1. 60 divided by 4 will give me 15. And then I multiply 1 and 15, which gives me 15 over 1, or just simply 15. So it's up to you. Look, we found 3 different ways, basically, to solve the same problem, okay? So you're going to encounter that quite often. So me personally, I like to change it from a percent to a decimal and then multiply. That's just me, okay? But go with your flow. So now let's practice that. So we're going to be finding 70% of 25. So if I want, I move it over 1, 2. So 70% is 0.70. And I'm going to multiply that by 25. Okay, so 0.70 multiplied by 25. Once I do the calculations, it will give me 17.5 or 17.50. Okay, so remember, 17.5 and 17.50 is very similar. It depends on how you are rounding. Okay, my suggestion, just me, since we're talking about 2 decimal places, we're talking about hundreds. Let's try to get your answers with that same matching form, ending in hundreds, okay? So now for number 2, find 6% of 72. So remember, if I move it over, I can move it over once, but now I gotta put that placeholder of 0 to represent the appropriate decimal. So now I got 6 hundredths, and I'm gonna multiply that by 72. So you got your 2 and your 6 gives me 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 0 is 0. Plus 1 is 1. 6 times 7 is 42. Take down the 2. Carry the 4. And then 7 times 0 is 0. Plus 4. Then you're going to add your remainders. So you got your 2, 3, and 4. Didn't mean for that to happen. Now, since we have 2 decimal places for the 6%, that means I need to have 2 decimal places for my answer. So 1, 2, so my decimal point should be between the 4 and the 3. So I have 4 and 32 hundredths. Okay? So now we're going for the second type, the percent problems. So when we're going to find the percent problems, we're also using that terminology again. So 4 is what percent of 16? So the word is plays a part in equals. So I can set it up like this. 4 equals. Now what percent? Do we know what percent? No. What do we put in its place? Hopefully you're yelling at me saying X. X, woman. Okay. Of means multiplication of 16. So you can write it as X times 16, or if you feel like switching it with 16X, now 4 equals 16X, knock yourself out. It's the same thing, okay? So now we want to solve for X. So we're not going to move the 4 over to the right-hand side. We're going to move the 16 because we want to get 16, or we want to get X by itself. So 16 times X, the inverse of multiplication is division. So we divide both sides by 16. So now 4 divided by 16, hopefully you're saying that's 1/4, and 1/4 is equivalent to 25 hundredths. So either one of these will be close to your answer. We got numbers, but what are we looking for? We're looking for the percent. So if you want to say 1/4%, or if you want to say 25%, that will be your official answer, okay? So either you can say 1/4%, or you can say 25%, because when I went from a decimal, okay, to a percent, I have to move 2 places to the right. So when I had my 0.25, if I moved it to the right, 1, 2, so that means where the decimal is, that's where I'm going to put my percent sign. That's how I got the 25%. All right, so let's do a couple practice with that. So 15 is what percent of 60? So again, if I set it up, I got my 15 minus, or not minus, sorry, equals, this is hideous, what percent, which we don't know, so that's x, of multiplication 60. So that means in order for me to isolate my variable, I got to divide both sides by 60. So either you're using your handy dandy calculator or you're basically actually doing the division. You're probably going to get 0.25 or 1/4 again. So that means what's the percentage? 25%. All right. So we can use those terminology form to help things out. Now here's the last type. I know it's a little long, but we're going to do this. So the last type of percent problems basically switches what we just did up. Instead of you looking for the percent, you're looking for the number. So let's take a look. We have 8 equals, because 8 is 40% of what? Since we don't know what is, I'm going to use my x. Now remember, if I'm solving, I'm either going to use my percent as a fraction or as a decimal. So since I'm pretty good at moving it 2 places to the left, instead of a 40, it's going to be 40 hundredths. Okay? So now, just like I did before, I want to isolate my variable. So I'm going to multiply, or actually divide, both sides by my coefficient, which is my 0.40 hundredths. So now I got 80 divided by 0.40. So 80 divided by 0.40, handy dandy calculator, that gives me 20. So basically, 8 is 40% of 20. All right, so we did quite a bit today. So can you find the percent of a number? So remember, if your percentages means it's out of 100, per 100 or per 100ths, okay? So if you're doing it, you can set it up as a fraction, the number over 100, then reduce. Or you can do the handy dandy trick of you're moving 2 places to the left if you're going from a percent to a decimal, and 2 places to the right if you're going from a decimal to a percent. So I think you're going to be doing all right with that. And then you can use my terminology sheet to help set up when you need to look for the percent or when you need to look for the number. So we did that. We reviewed. We looked at the guided notes examples. We did a couple practice problems. Now we're going for the exit ticket. So for your exit ticket this time, you got 1, 2, 3 questions. Okay, so change 19% into a fraction and a decimal. Find 90% of 200. And 24 is what percent of 40? So if you're not sure how to do things, hey, rewind the tape. Look at it again. Look at the videos 90 times as you want. You can fast forward. You can rewind. You can have all the entertainment that you want, because this is for you. I do this because it seems like a lot of you guys need help with the basic or foundational skills. I'm here to help. I don't have school right now. I'm quarantined. So why not? So if you want to see more of these videos, if you want to see more of the exit tickets and make sure that you're doing it right, please comment, subscribe, hit that like button. Let's go. So we can pass it on to others, because I know more people will benefit from this as anything. So if you haven't learned anything, I'm kind of scared. If you were entertained, awesome. I did my job. But if you do need more help, if you need anything, please make sure you hit your contact and or send me your information on the comment section. and then hit notification, and then hit some like and subscribe, because we're going to keep having more fun as I have the time. Okay? So if anything, keep it going. I'm so proud of you, and hopefully everything's going to be going all right. So take care. Bye.